waiting for a couple of more of you to come in. I'm Kirk Johnston, manager of Andrew Jackson State Park, and we'll be joined by Laura Ledford, the park interpreter, shortly. We are going to be talking about herbs and their use primarily for food, but some other uses as well as we go through our herb garden. We're located right behind our museum here at Andrew Jackson State Park, where Andrew Jackson, 7th President of the United States, spent his boyhood. Among the things that happened to him while he was here, he became the only U.S. president who was a prisoner of war when he was captured by the British during the American Revolution. We also had Jackson being the last president born in a log cabin. Excuse me, I've got that backwards. He was the first president born in a log cabin. He was also the first president to be riding a train. That's how far his life went in his lifetime. Another little bit of trivia, Jackson was good about being modern, trying to modernize things when he could. So he was the first president to have running water indoors of the White House. He went as far as installing an indoor bathroom for his family that stayed there with him at the residence. So Jackson, interesting character. People today, even 180 years after his death, still have a lot of opinions about whether you loved him or hated him. So I'd say he had a lot of impact if you're still worried nearly 200 years ago about his personality.
Oh, Glenda Simpson-Hughes says she's enjoying the videos. Thank you, Glenda.
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm glad you joined up with us today. Well, what we're getting ready to get started now that we've got a few more people gathered in with you. Thank you for coming in. I know it's a beautiful day all over South Carolina. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us this morning. We're going to be talking a little bit about what it meant to live in the backcountry of South Carolina when Andrew Jackson was a child. And we're also going to talk a little bit more specifically about herbs. The park, Andrew Jackson State Park, has an herb garden, and we try to keep it going year round. It serves some different purposes for us. Use it a lot in our educational programs, so we're going to share some of that with you this morning. I'm Kirk Johnston, park manager. With me today will also be Laura Ledford, the park interpreter, and then we've got Joyce Mahaffey, a good volunteer on the camera today, and she'll be helping answer some of the questions as we go along this afternoon. When Andrew Jackson's born on March 15th, 1767, he's in a region called the Waxhaws. It's right on the edge of the frontier, but he wasn't on the very far end of the frontier. So there were some other settlers between where he lived and others, but they still basically had the same issue, and that is, what did you need to do to survive? And survival comes down to some basic things. You've got to have water, you've got to have shelter, and you've got to have food. With those three things, you should be able to at least stick around and overcome most problems. So when the Jacksons come to the Waxhaws, Mrs. Jackson has sisters already living here. The land's a little bit settled, but they still had to create a new home site for themselves up the road from her sisters. So to them, one of the first orders of business was finding shelter. And to get shelter in the Carolina backcountry, that meant cutting down trees. And they took down trees, they converted those trees into the log cabin houses that they were to live in. Again, Jackson's that first president to be born in a log cabin. And these cabins were not anything too fancy. The cabin he lived in, the best we understand, was 1.5 stories tall. And he had 2 rooms on the first floor and a loft on the upper side of the house. The loft was probably where the children like himself would have slept at night. And your other 2 floors are bedrooms, kitchens, living rooms, gathering rooms for the entire family. So even then in 1767, you're getting close and comfortable with your family. It's not a new concept. The cabins were made to be temporary residences. Often after the cabins were used, they would be converted into another building on the property when a nicer house would be built. Jackson's cabin stood on our park property. We're not exactly sure where. We've been looking for it for 200 years. The president did not do us the favor of coming back and pointing it out when he became a famous person. In fact, that cabin was probably gone by the time he was president, or at best a hay barn for somebody else's farm. So you had the shelter, you had the cleared land. Next big problem is having water. Water is something everybody needs every day. You want it clean if possible. The options that would have been available to a South Carolinian in the backcountry would have been a stream like a brook or a creek. You might have had a spring that came up naturally out of the ground. If you found those things easily, you were fortunate. Most often, that meant digging a well. And that meant somebody taking a shovel and digging a hole down until you hit the water level enough that it kept filling up every day. Now, well water collection was a children's activity, a chore, not something that mom and dad's going to run out and do every morning. So, to make life a little bit easier, the children often would have a yoke, and on that yoke, you'd hang a bucket on either side so that you'd balance yourself out and bring the water in. And bringing water in is a several times a day activity, because think of all the things you use water for today: cleaning, cooking, washing. You stayed busy just collecting water for the family every day. The other thing is there's usually a bucket that you could drink out of, and in that bucket you're going to have something like a gourd to dip the water out of. It's just an old squash that's been hollowed out on one side, and dip it in the water, take a nice cool drink, refresh yourself, because after all, carrying all that water is going to be work to you after a while. You're going to probably want some of it.
Hi, Hannah Warren. We're South Carolina proud too. We miss everybody here.
Glad you joined up with us this morning. Appreciate you being here. The backcountry also offered a lot of opportunities for people to gather food. Hunting and gathering, we might think of more of the Native Americans, but our early settlers did the same thing. They had woods and fields all around them, and they were learning a new world to them and trying to see what might be part of their food supply. And the first thing you've got to remember is, unlike us today, the nearest store is 50 miles away, and now what we call Camden, South Carolina. That was just starting to be known as that when Jackson was living here. And you went down the Great Road that eventually connected you to Charleston and the sea, but it's still 50 miles one way. So it's not a journey you make the same day. It's a several day trip that you plan up for. And if you're going to make a trip like that, you're going to get things you really need that you can't just get anywhere. That would be salt, sugar, spices that came from afar. So all of this luxury that we have today of spices and salts and sugars available to us anytime, those were luxuries for Jackson and his family, something that they used sparingly because it required a several-day trip just to acquire them. Now here, hunting is going to be a big part. There's game such as deer and rabbits, squirrel and turkey, wild turkey. All of these things would have been available for hunting. Fishing, you've got close to us here, 5 miles away, the Catawba River. That would have been an option for fishing, especially in the spring this time of year when the shad would run. Then you could go into the woods, gather nuts, berries, blackberries, grow wild. Persimmons grow wild in this area. You're going to find different nuts like hickory, walnuts. Most families, if they could, would figure out a way to plant an orchard so they'd have fruit trees. We have a small orchard that we're working on here with apples, plums, and peaches. Not only could you eat those particular fruits, you could also convert them into some type of liquid refreshment for the family that would keep throughout the year and not spoil. So you had a number of things that were provided for you by nature. But after you've cleared that plot of land, you've got cleared land, you're going to want to start planting some crops of your own to try to supplement your diet. Everybody would have what they called a kitchen garden, which would be where you'd have your vegetables like beans and squash and peas, things that could grow very easily. They also would have planted corn to some extent so that they would have that available. Farmers would actually plant wheat so that they could process their own bread. There were several mills within 6 miles of us that would be used by the Jacksons, so they could grind wheat into flour if they were able to have enough land to plant wheat. And then in your kitchen garden, you're also going to have herbs. So these herbs we're going to start showing to you now. I'm going to bring in Laura Ledford, the park interpreter. Hi, Laura.
Hey, how are you today?
Doing great. You want to show us a little bit more about the herb garden?
Sure, I'd love to show you more about the herb garden. First of all, we have a variety of herbs here. We don't have all the ones we have all year round. We can switch some in and out. Is purple coneflower or echinacea. It's good for to help you fighting colds. The leaves are edible, so we're going to grab a few of those. Next to this is our wood sorrel. We have some like you'd have on your baked potato today. This is called Bible leaf or holocaust. They would use it to flavor ale. They would also dry it in their Bibles and chew it during long sermons to keep them awake. It has a very minty flavor. Think about Altoids, which were available in the 18th century, times about 10. And that's kind of the mint intensity for this. You come around, Joyce. And next to our hoe is some dill. It's good for seasoning pickles, of course. This is our some henbit, which we'll talk about later. These are some leeks. That's a new thing in our herb garden we're going to try. We haven't tried before. We've got some mint, which is very good for digestion.
Thank you, Hannah Warren. She says she's loving this. And hi, Matt and Angie Hunter. We miss you too.
Matt are some of our volunteers who help with our lantern tour in November. They had planned to be out for our birthday. This is catnip, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. There's more coneflower. And I'm going to get back here for a second, Joyce. And this lovely bush where you see some pollinators working is one of our rosemary plants here. We have 3 huge rosemary plants on the park, and it was something that was very useful. It has astringent and antiseptic properties. I'm going to pick some of that for a project. And we'll come around here. This is lamb's ear. Lamb's ear is fuzzy and soft. It also has coagulant properties. It means it helps you stop bleeding. So that was something that would be in every Frontiers lady's first aid kit. You look over here at this lovely field of green. This is yarrow. It's another herb that was used for teas and medicines. But you can also eat it straight out of the ground. Right here, the silver green is southern wormwood. And we're going to pick some more of that. Whoops, there's yarrow. Because we need to use some wormwood for one of our activities today. Okay. And if you'll come in right here. Okay. We have basil and some more catnip. You'll see some dandelions peeking through here. And then you go on your way out, Miss Joy. We have some garlic chives. This is some thyme. And we're going to use some of that today as well.
Jeff Atkins says, hi, Laura. I miss you too. Thanks for all you do.
Hey, Jeff. So, I've got a bunch of different things we're going to use today. Let's talk about those. I forgot to bring that gift from the Grams. Okay, now, the first thing we're going to do is I have been out this morning foraging or looking for different plants that we could make a salad with. Hi, this is Laura Ledford at Andrew Jackson State Park. We're going to make some salad today with some plants that I've foraged. One of the first things that plants I want to show you, Ranger Kirk will cooperate, are some lovely dandelions. Dandelions are a plant that you can use the entire plant. You can use the root. You can see the root. You can use the leaves. And you can use the flowers. So, forgot to show you something. Can you see me in the store?
I can.
This is called a thumb pot, and this is made out of redware, which is a kind of clay. And I'll show you just how we water our plant. That did not work. Ha ha ha. Get some water in here. And then
Oh, cool. So it drips right on out.
well, if I release my thumb,
Oh, that is so cool.
And they used a lot more pottery than they did plastic back then, of course. No plastic in Andrew Jackson's time. So, first, let's talk about what I'm going to do with these dandelion flowers. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick them off. So I have a little bit of color, and we're just going to do this a little bit quicker because we know you don't want to get bored at home. And I'm also going to add some leaves. I'm just going to tell you which plants I can use because salad won't be as pretty. So we have our dandelions we've talked about. These are broadleaf plantains, which you can eat. We've got henbit, which is a good salad maker.
You said henbit?
Henbit. Chickens like to eat it.
Okay.
Hens and biddies. This is grape leaves. You don't have to be Greek to enjoy a good grape leaf. This is one of my favorites. This is wild sorrel. My grandma called it shamrocks, and it is one of my favorite ones to eat.
Let's get a little closer on that because it's hard to see. Wow.
And then another one.
Thank you, Denise Johnston. We love our table.
Another thing that is really good are clover. Clover is a very versatile crop. You can feed it to yourself. You can feed it to your cows. You can eat the leaves or the stalks or even the red flowers or the white flowers, depending on what variety you have. This is another one of my favorites. I've always called it sour grass, and it usually grows with some toadflax nearby. And this is another one that you can use for salad. More people call it sheep sorrel, and you just kind of chew on it to get the good part out. I've got a garlic here I can chop up, get some antiviral properties going. I have chickweed, which is growing abundant right now, that you can put in your salad. I have, there's even parts of trees you can eat. I can't find my tree.
Jennifer, while she's looking for that, our lantern tour is usually held in November. Laura, can you tell her just real quickly about it a little bit?
It is the second weekend in November, November 14th this year, and it's a series of skits about life here in the Carolina backcountry during Andrew Jackson's time. So these are redbud leaves, which are fastly wilting. I've got some over here. We've got some wild onions that our Ranger Tyler harvested this morning, and some garlic chives that he harvested for us. And these are Queen Anne's lace. They're a wild carrot. These are a little bit young still, but you can eat the carrot and the tops. Another thing that I'm going to add to my salad, add a little bit of protein, is sunflower seeds. I'm also going to make a salad dressing. To make a salad dressing. What's my time?
10:23.
I'm going to put in some vinegar. I'm going to put in some different herbs I have. These are lavender buds left from last year. These are some mustard seed. Good and crunchy. I've got some peppercorns here. Not many, because that's something we'd have to get.
What do you call that thing you're using?
It's a mortar and a pestle.
And what does it do?
It's used for grinding. So I would put some of my pepper in there. What else? So I'll probably put some garlic in there. I like to put parsley and other herbs in there, but this is a good little start. And I would use something like this to dress my salad. Just anything you put in one of today's vinaigrettes you can use. I could chop up some mint. I do have some dried mint that goes pretty well in this. And just whatever I've got on hand. Might have some horseradish, things like that. Does anybody have any questions so far?
It is Matt and Angie Hunter. Angie says, "Yep, I've eaten sour grass." Either Angie or Matt said that.
Another way that plants were often used, especially medicinally, but also just to have a fresh, different drink besides water. So remember, your water sources weren't always necessarily clean back then, but you could make a tea from dandelion flowers and mint leaves, and then some of this.
And yes, Denise, you would put a type of oil. What type of oil would you put in the dressing?
Well, back then they called it sweet oil, which was another name for olive oil.
Yep.
But they also press nuts and other grains to make different kind of oils with.
Wow.
This is lemon balm, which is one of my favorite herbs. And you would add this to your tea as well, or you could add it to your salad. It is has a lemon scent. It was used for flavoring things like butter, or you could chop it up and put it in a pound cake to give it a lemon zest, because lemons did not grow naturally in South Carolina in the 18th century, still don't grow naturally. But if you took the lemon balm, the mint, and the dandelion flowers and put them in a cup, or if you're making a bigger batch, you could use a bowl, and you would put more than that in there. So you just strip one of these down in there, and I put some more lemon balm too. I also might put a little lavender. Again, I like lavender. Maybe a little bit of rosemary. No, I'm not too big on rosemary in my tea. But you would take this and you would have boiling hot water. Unfortunately, we don't have any right now because we're in a campfire ban. And you would pour it over. This would steep. Not the right word. This would steep. Let it steep for about 30 minutes. then you would pour it off and take out the leaves and the flowers, and you have a nice tea that was rich in vitamin C and antioxidants, and it would help give you something a little bit different to eat on the to drink on the frontier. There's also something that we do on the frontier is that we trade or barter. And yesterday I went over to the Graham farm and got some items from them so that I can trade with them later in the year.
Hi, Lee Jordan. She's watching also. And one lady, Jennifer Hodgson, said she did not know that about Queen Anne's lace.
Queen Anne's lace is a wild carrot. It also has some superstition related to it. They believe that the little purple flower that shows up sometimes was supposed to mark the blood of Queen Anne. Of course, Anne was the Queen of England. But the superstition that many Scotch-Irish held, the Scotch-Irish was the ethnic group that Andrew Jackson was part of, believed that if you picked Queen Anne's lace and carried it into your home, that your mother would die.
Wow.
So that was that's one of the things associated with that. Let's see. Why don't you get a look at the lemon balm, Joyce? Can you tell people kind of what it tastes like to you?
It tastes like lemon. It actually, to me, tastes like almost like eating a lemon drop. And I actually have used it out here sometimes, like if we're working outside and we get a scent on our hands, I'll come rub lemon balm on my hands and make them smell better. Hi, Crystal Hams Livesey. And Rick Duran is watching. Hi, Rick.
I'm so glad we've got so many people tuning in today.
Yes, we do. I love it.
Some of the other things that you did in the herb garden, we will talk about on another visit. I do have one more thing I want to show you that Ranger Kirk is getting for us.
Hi, Marsha Lemons. So while we're waiting, we'll say hi to our friends, and we're just so glad to have you. Brad King, thank you. He said this is great info.
Good. I always like to share something.
Yes.
Okay. So, yesterday I went over.
Sandy Pomeroy. It's lemon balm, BALM.
Yes, ma'am, we know that. Sorry that you have trouble understanding our South Carolina accent sometimes. This is something that I traded with another local farmer. These are strawberries. Strawberries take a lot of effort to grow, so I don't have any here on the park. We do have some wild false strawberries. But what we do have in our orchard is we have blueberries. So I can get some strawberries from my neighbors this month and give them some blueberries in June. And these you can just eat straight out of the ground, or you can add them to a salad.
Stacy says hi, Cousin Laura.
Hope everything's good down in Kershaw County. This is also other things you can use strawberries for is you can dry them and use them for fruit later to put in your pastries, your cakes, things like that. If you've got a lot of sugar, which is hard to come by again in the backcountry, but there are other natural sweeteners, you can boil them down and use them to make preserves. That's another thing that strawberries are really good for, that we know they used in foreign colonial times.
We've got a question here from Melinda. Does it grow wild? Melinda, I don't know if you're talking about the lemon balm or not. Laura, does the lemon balm grow wild?
It can. I've never found it in the wild, but it is something that spreads very easily. It's a part of the mint family, and mints tend to spread easily. So I wouldn't be surprised if you found somewhere. Somewhere. It is, there are a lot of different flavored mints, like chocolate mint these days you never find in the woods. But again, this might be one you'd find because it is a naturalized plant.
And Debbie Robinson said her husband is loving the bonnet. He thinks women should still wear bonnets.
This is a cap, and you might wear a bigger hat called a bonnet over it. It's very useful, especially when you're cooking over the fire, to keep the dirt out of your hair. It also helps with the heat, so they were very useful. Okay, well, I have some other things that I can't wait to share with you on your next visit to Andrew Jackson State Park, and I'd like to thank Joyce and Ranger Tyler and Ranger Kirk for all their help today, and hope to be able to see you in the park soon. Stay safe and happy.